it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
It's time for the biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport. Let's join the team for the biggest show in the world of sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.
Wacky Wednesday and good evening Zimbabwe, welcome to it. This is ZiFM Sport and we're coming to you live, not from the studio but from our homes into the comfort of your homes, your car or office if you're back at work and working late. You should be at home actually with your family in these times. My name is Mike Madoda, with me in studio Barry Manandi, Alois Munjira, Chris Gray, and the man behind the desk is Sean Tafirinika. Great show we got planned for you today. We'll kick off on the home front as usual with Zimbabwe's senior national football team captain, Knowledge Musona. The smiling assassin is set to end his nightmarish stint with the Belgian Pro League giants Anderlecht amid reports that he will soon seal a permanent transfer deal to KAS Eupen, where he was on loan in the just-ended season.
In international sports news, ESPN's The Last Dance documentary is done, but the controversy about some of the issues raised in the 10-part series still linger after the final episode aired last week. As an old tape has confirmed, Michael Jordan had a hand in assuring that Pistons icon Isaiah Thomas was kept off the 1992 US Olympic Dream Team. In Around the World in 60, we take off in World Rugby headquarters in England, where World Rugby will this week consider temporary law changes aimed at reducing the spread of coronavirus. In Canada, ice hockey legend Wayne Gretzky has hailed Bianca Andreescu as a hero for young kids after claiming her maiden Grand Slam title at the US Open. And in the United States, Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross is confident of the likelihood of the 2020 NFL season being played as scheduled.
And in the beautiful game, Bayern Munich coach Hansi Flick said they took a big step towards an 8th straight Bundesliga title as their 1-0 win at Borussia Dortmund opened a 7-point lead with 6 games left. In the Premier League, Arsenal and Tottenham will compete against each other for the free signing of Chelsea's Willian as they face up to a lean transfer window. In La Liga, Real Madrid midfielder Casemiro has reportedly signed a new contract at the club until 2023, with the deal being struck months ago. And in Serie A, Cristiano Ronaldo has returned to Juventus training, but is working separately to the rest of his teammates after spending time in quarantine since returning to Italy. That and so much more to look forward to on this edition of ZiFM Sport. It is Wacky Wednesday. Let's get into our power play. Here's Joburg by Mapincha featuring TNS.
The Warriors, the Chevrons, the Cheetahs, the Mighty Warriors, and the Sables. From the pool to the track to the field, we are Team Zimbabwe. The Home Front. Local sports news and analysis.
Right, we kick off with a big football story, and it concerns Warriors skipper Knowledge Musona, and reports out of Europe that the smiling assassin is set to end his nightmarish stint with Belgian Pro League giants Anderlecht amid reports that he will soon seal a permanent transfer deal to KAS Eupen, where he was on loan in the just-ended season. Reports from Belgium yesterday suggested that KAS Eupen were keen to retain Musona's services on a permanent basis after an impressive performance since securing a loan switch from Anderlecht in the January transfer window. The breakthrough came after he had struggled for game time. Now, interesting reports, these ones, guys. Knowledge Musona. Anderlecht, of course, arguably the biggest club out in Belgium, and a club that a lot of fans thought was more fitting for the Warriors skipper. He didn't go well for him there, despite our well wishes, and it looks like he may have found a home, Alois, at KAS Eupen.
Yeah, we all wanted him to be at Anderlecht. That's what we have always aspired for. Our captain, knowing since he left Kaizer Chiefs to Germany, we still wanted him to do well in Germany. It didn't come out right. He went to Belgium. And then that move to Anderlecht was actually what we were waiting for. But unfortunately, I think because of the ankle injury that he suffered, I think he played a big part in his problems at Anderlecht. And then the coach that came along when he was just signed by Anderlecht as well, I don't think that he regarded him very highly, and that's the problems. But now he is playing well. He is doing well, although at the twilight of his career now, 30-something. I think he's turning his 30 this year, and we can actually start looking at a situation whereby he is going to make probably his last contract. So if he does that with UPen and make the most of it, we are all happy about it, and we can only congratulate him. I hope that he does well, because we still need him. We still want him to play for Zimbabwe. We still want him to play at the highest level in England. So we're on to him if he signs a permanent contract with UPen. But unfortunately, we had hoped that he was going to do well at Anderlecht, but it was not to be so.
Yeah, and of course his time at Anderlecht largely frustrating. Only 8 appearances, scoring just 1 goal, and it looks like Anderlecht have transfer listed him. He's got a contract, Barry, until 2022. So he could choose, of course, to just hang around Anderlecht. But I think the message has been made, and it's a very clear one. We don't want you here. We want to push you along. And of course, KAS UPen has come along. So it looks like it could be a win-win for KAS UPen and Knowledge Musona.
Yeah, it could be a win-win. However, just looking at from a footballing perspective, is it the best move that he can get at the moment? I don't think so. Is it a good move? Yes, certainly. It certainly is a good move.
What better move can he get, Barry?
Look, in truth, from a football, because what you want to do is, at his age, just like Alois pointed out, he needs to be playing, number one, football that he enjoys, competitive football where he's winning more matches than he's losing, if you understand what I'm saying. And at KAS UPen, yes, he's going to play football, possibly even regularly, week in, week out. But is he going to be enjoying his game? Is he going to be winning more than he is losing? I don't think so. So, for me, I know.
Okay, so let's say Barry Menandi, we give you the office of Knowledge Musona's manager. You become his agent for a day. What sort of decisions are you making, and what advice are you giving Knowledge?
I'm giving the advice to say, Knowledge, let's pack our bags. Let's go to Mamelodi Sundowns. They're interested in us. Let's get the deal that we want, not the deal that we need, because KAS UPen is the deal that we need. Let's get the deal that we want. So our wage demands are met, our signing on is met, and it can be met at Mamelodi Sundowns. Let's go play football that we enjoy. Let's go and play, potentially, in the Champions League, because Mamelodi Sundowns, when football returns in South Africa, are right in the hunt against Kaizer Chiefs for that championship. So let's go and play football that we enjoy, that we know, that we're familiar with, and prepare for our retirement. The deal that we want, let's get a minimum of 4 years, at least 4 years. And Sundowns, Motsepe will give you something like that.
Chris, he's 29 years old. You've heard the advice that's come in from Agent Menandi. Is it advice that you will take?
Absolutely. I think, like we're saying, he's reaching the end of his career. And one thing that I think you definitely want to do when you reach the end of your career is to enjoy the game. Those last few years, I think you want to enjoy the game. Another thing is, in terms of the deal that he would get and financially, as you start to prepare, and I know a lot of footballers don't think like this, but it's time for him to start preparing for his retirement, and that starts with the kind of contracts that he's signing. He's likely to get more money at a club like Sundowns in South Africa. If you take a look at just the amounts that was circulating in terms of how much Pito is making on a month-to-month basis with the club, that sort of tells you the trajectory that they're on and how much they're willing to invest in that club winning the ABSA Premiership. So for me, I think from a financial perspective, which I think is one of the things that's going to be most important for him in preparation for life after football, I think we always say this, that bora na pension. So there's after football, if you don't have a solid plan financially, that's where we have these players who come back home or wherever they are and they're almost destitute. So from a financial perspective, I'm definitely with Agent Menandi.
Definitely with the agent Menandi. Alois, the proposal there is for Knowledge Musona at the age of 29 now. Just from observation, he's a guy who I would even go back to say that I don't think he's quite enjoyed his football in the last 5 years because, it's been stop-start, it's been injury here, injury there, it's been a tale of missed opportunities, the big move to the Bundesliga, flirtations with Hoffenheim, flirtations with Augsburg, and you get the feeling that Knowledge, I think, at the age of 29, you're not going to make the step up in Europe, There is no Ajax that's going to come knocking on your door. There is no Everton that's going to come knocking on your door. So there is no La Liga side that's going to come looking for you or Serie A side. So the only way for Knowledge, I think, to enjoy his football is possibly to make that move to South Africa. It won't affect his standing in Zimbabwe. And so for me, if I were Knowledge Musona, I'm with Chris and Barry here to say that this is a move I would also support.
Yeah, I think listen, you're right as well, Mike. When you look at the situation, I think Knowledge Musona, when he retires from football, when he sits down and talks to his children, to his grandchildren, he will talk about Europe as very, very as a time when it was very frustrating for him. When I look at his career in Europe, it has been frustrating to say the least. Hoffenheim, Augsburg, Anderlecht, everywhere. He hasn't really enjoyed football. The only time that I can believe that he enjoyed football was at Kaizer Chiefs. When he was at Kaizer Chiefs, he was darling, he was doing well, he was scoring goals, and he's held in high esteem in South Africa. So I believe that, going back to South Africa, when you look at a club like Juppe, I actually believe that Sundowns can actually match what they're giving him there. Probably if he asks for it, he can actually get it at Sundowns, and he will be closer to home. He will be where he is adored, and he is closer to his family. And better still, like Chris said, this is the time to start preparing for life after football. Life after football is not just about putting money in the bank. It's about investing. It's about starting something that is going to generate income for you when you retire as well. So when he comes here, he can actually do those things. He can actually put things in place, and he can actually manage some of the things on his own when he's actually closer to home. He can actually do it in South Africa. I'm sure he also qualifies for South African permanent residence now, so he can actually do it in South Africa as well. So it's a very good proposition, I should say, and it's where he is going to be comfortable, play good football, and he needs to come now when he is still on top of his game. If he spends 2-3 more seasons at Juppe, and now after he's done with that, at that time, Sundowns don't want him as well. So he'd rather come now when they still want him and sign a long-term contract when they still want him. Exactly.
The tragedy is that we've seen Musona's career has been just one long catalogue of wrong decisions, in my view. Okay,
yes.
in the sense that when he went to Hoffenheim, I truly believe the interest from Celtic, he should have gone to Celtic and played in the Scottish League.
I believe so too.
Had he done that, I think his career would have taken a very different trajectory. He would have possibly been in England a lot sooner than Marvelous Nakamba. So I truly believe that the wrong decisions have been made. So if anyone who has anything to do with decisions to do with Knowledge Musona's career, now is the time to whisper in his ear, in fact, shout in his ear, he needs to come back to South Africa.
Okay, just a quick one here. The elephant in the room, because we've already talked about Agent Manandi, and then Barry has come back and has talked about wrong decisions, catalogue of wrong decisions. Chris, when it comes to the representative of players in Zimbabwe, those that are playing their football in the Council Premier Soccer League and those that are playing outside of our borders, do you feel that they're ably represented? Do you feel that the agents in Zimbabwe are doing a good enough job?
I don't think so. And this is an issue of we don't have, first of all, in terms of a knowledge base, I don't know any agents that are particularly qualified. I haven't come across any. Another thing is it's more a case of who knows who, rather than who is the best person to be the representative. I think sometimes we have players who will still stick to their Zimbabwean representatives when it's not the best move to make, when they need to be represented by bigger, more established agents. And that move never happens because I don't know if it's a loyalty thing and, we want someone who knows my story, Tagava Kuretesi and that sort of thing. So I think we don't have qualified agents in Zim, not nearly enough. And that's where the tragedy comes, where we're just trying to move people out, whether it's to a club in Europe where they're not going to be getting any good game time or anything. We're just trying to move people out without a proper map or trajectory of where we want this player to go. And that's the issue, is then how are we planning out these players' careers, and are the agents planning out their players' careers?
This is certainly a conversation worth having, and so let's do so on our social media platforms. Follow and interact with us at ZiFM Sport on Twitter as well as Facebook, at Barry Menandi, at Alois Bunjira. Just simply look for Alois Bunjira, you'll find him there. Mike Madoda, Sean Tafrinik, and of course Chris Gray. You'll find us, and we'll be able to carry on this conversation around agents and their work in Zimbabwe football.
Hi, this is Alexandra Maseko, and I'm the national basketball team captain, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Let's dive straight into our local sports news roundup, starting with basketball, where Harare City Hornets power forward Manoa Ntini has erected a makeshift basket at home to help him work on his vertical leap, which he says is his Achilles heel. The 23-year-old former UZ Stars player, who joined Hornets at the start of the 2019-2020 season, is looking forward to perfect his vertical skills when the Harare Basketball Association season resumes. His club lead the standings and need only 3 wins from 4 games to retain the championship. Ntini is relishing the opportunity to win the HBA League for the first time in his career. Onto athletics now. Zimbabwe's top female long-distance runner, Rutendo Nyahora, who wants to go a gear up in her build-up for the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games qualifiers when South Africa eases its lockdown from the 1st of June. Nyahora is based in South Africa and is eyeing her second Olympic Games appearance. South African authorities announced at the weekend they will be easing their lockdown from the beginning of next month when they move to level 3. Among the changes announced by President Ramaphosa will be the permission for people to exercise at any time during the day. We wrap it up with the top tier of domestic football, the Castle Lager Premier Soccer League, where club legend Tobias Mjikambanje has warned Highlanders that they are continuously shooting themselves in the foot due to their knack of hiring expensive foreign coaches at the expense of locals. Mujigambanje, who was a lethal forward during his playing days, feels Highlanders are always in the financial quagmire by employing foreign coaches. Although the foreign coaches have brought a relative success, Highlanders have constantly struggled to meet their financial demands.
Hi, this is Mike Madoda, and you can catch me and the team for all the latest breaking news out of the world of sport, local as well as international, on your favorite station, my station, your station, ZiFM. We are Z-Team on ZiFM Sport.
Z International Sports News Roundup, where the world comes out to play. Whether it's the NBA or NFL, the best of America on ZiFM.
Sports News Roundup has got basketball front and center. Bit of controversy now. ESPN's The Last Dance documentary is done, but the controversy about some of the issues raised in the 10-part series still linger after the final episode aired last week. One of the big storylines centered around Michael Jordan and Pistons icon Isaiah Thomas, and whether Jordan had a hand in assuring that Thomas was kept off the 1992 US Olympic Dream Team. In the documentary, Jordan claimed that he didn't keep Thomas off the team, which was coached by Pistons coach Chuck Daly. There's more evidence to suggest that he may have had some say in whether Thomas made the final roster, which was decided by Rod Thorne, an NBA executive who was part of the USA Basketball Selection Committee. Now, in his The Dream Team Tapes podcast, noted sports writer Jack McCullum released audio that he said is Jordan talking about the issue in 2011, as McCullum was working on his book about the Dream Team. Let's have a listen.
They called me to ask me to play. Rob called me and said, Rob, I won't play with Isaiah Thomas on the team. He assured me, he said, you know what? Chuck doesn't want Isaiah, so Isaiah's not going to be a part of the team.
If you didn't hear, he said, I don't want to play if Isaiah Thomas is on the team.
Z.
All right, now that issue obviously is a hot topic, hot button issue out of The Last Dance, Mike, and there are many issues, but let's just center on that one, where in truth, everything points to the fact that there is a very big and good likelihood that the decision to leave Isaiah Thomas, who was one of the best players in the league, mark you, at the time, out of the Dream Team, was influenced by Michael Jordan.
And Barry, I think the tragedy for it, and I know a lot of people gravitate towards MJ, towards Michael Jordan as the GOAT, as the greatest that's ever played, as a player that we enjoyed watching and we enjoyed. But the tragedy for me is that for Isaiah Thomas, he was one of the best 2-point guards in the NBA alongside Magic Johnson. And so on merit, he warranted a place. And they would have even have had debate about whether he starts or not. Okay, and I'm sure people would have said, Magic would have taken the starting role, and rightfully so. But Isaiah Thomas would have pushed him hard. He was a smooth operator. He was good at what he did, and it shouldn't have counted against him whether people liked him or not. Whether Michael Jordan liked him or not shouldn't have worked against him. Unfortunately, it did. And the biggest tragedy for me is that Isaiah Thomas was denied the opportunity to get a gold medal at the Olympics. That is the biggest tragedy, because sports stars, sports people get into sport for the achievements. They get into it for the glory and for the money, yes, but they get into it to win stuff. And that's something that Isaiah Thomas was denied, not because he wasn't good enough, but because someone didn't want him there.
Yeah, and that's someone now coming out to be Michael Jordan, Chris. But again, when we expand it, we then hear and find out that many members of the Dream Team themselves didn't have a good relationship with Isaiah Thomas, but largely for basketball reasons, because he was out of that Pistons team that was very abrasive. You would feel it when you played that Pistons team, because they were very physical in their approach, and he had a rocky relationship with the likes of the Scottie Pippens of this world, who was on that Dream Team. He had a rocky relationship with your Karl Malones, your Magic Johnsons. Would it have affected the team dynamic in your thinking? Yes, he was denied a gold medal, but the team dynamic, would it have been affected with Isaiah Thomas being there?
Absolutely. I think that in as much as, yes, he was denied an opportunity, I think that chemistry, especially during something like the Olympics, is important. But I also think what influenced greatly the fact that other players didn't like him was the fact that Michael Jordan didn't like him. And if we're going to be completely honest with some of these players, and I'm going to throw Scottie Pippen in there, is they were highly influenced by Michael Jordan. If Michael said he didn't like someone, likelihood is that person is not calling Michael Jordan out to say, no, but this guy is actually a good player and whatever. This person is probably agreeing and saying, yes, So I think in as much as we can say it would have affected team dynamics and that there were other players who didn't like him as well, Michael Jordan was an influential character at the time. And other players not liking him may have been a factor of that as well.
And we
are hearing this, other players didn't like him. We're hearing it from Michael Jordan.
True.
I want Magic Johnson to stand up and say, I didn't like him. I want Karl Malone to stand up and say, I didn't like him. We didn't get that. How come we didn't get that narrative from those players to openly come out and say, you know what, we didn't like. Because if you notice Magic Johnson's comments around Isaiah Thomas, he was very jittery about that particular subject and not very forthcoming. So people were like, they were passing the buck. They were passing the buck around that issue. So for me, it came down to a purely commercial decision made by US basketball, which was Michael Jordan has said that if Isaiah Thomas is on the team, I'm not playing. What does it do for the Dream Team? What does it do?
It's no longer the Dream Team.
USA. It's no longer the Dream Team without Michael Jordan. That's what it came down to. These guys, I'm sure, had no problem, because here's the thing. People talk about how abrasive that Pistons team was. Guess who was a member of that team and later joined the Bulls?
Dennis Rodman.
Dennis Rodman was a part of that Pistons team. He was a part. In fact, he was actually rougher, cruder, more physical than Isaiah Thomas,
because he was an all-out defensive player.
So when people talk about that's the reason why they didn't like Isaiah, let me tell you the reason why people didn't like Isaiah Thomas. Because Isaiah Thomas was confident in his own ability, stood up to Michael Jordan, didn't pander to anyone's whims, was able to stand up for himself. That is the primary reason why Michael Jordan didn't like him. He didn't lick up because he knew he could match Jordan. He could match him. And he had done it back to back, which is why the three-peats for Michael Jordan meant so much, because he had gone one better than Isaiah Thomas. And even up to now. If you notice that when the two are interviewed, Isaiah Thomas is always very calm, very assured in himself. He's always like that. There's no
and Mark, and
the guy who actually betrays his emotions is Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and Isaiah Thomas in all his interviews is always respectful.
Yes,
of
MJ,
Michael Jordan, and every other player as well. Let's take a quick snapshot from Alois Bujia about team dynamics. Alois, have you ever played with a jerk who would upset the dressing room?
Yeah. I've played with some before. I wouldn't want to call
no names mentioned.
I don't want to call it a jerk, but I had one that, especially at Bidverts. You know, if you go on the wrong side of the guy, then you are going to be in trouble with the coach. You know, even arguing, you know, even on the field, if you start arguing with him, if he makes a mistake and you start arguing with him, you get substituted because the coach didn't want him to get upset. You know, so
can I throw the name, Alois?
Huh?
Benson McCone.
I'm not mentioning names.
You're not mentioning names.
I'm not mentioning names.
We don't make Kickoff magazine headlines.
You know this show is people in South Africa. They're listening to this show, guys. You know, so while I was listening to you guys, I could actually understand. You know, I could actually understand the situation, team dynamics. At the end of the day, the directors, the coaches, or the association, they will have to come up with a solution. What exactly do they want? You know, they have to look at the all-round situation. Do we want the gold medal from the dream team? Yes. What do we need to do? Even if sacrificing the better player, it was going to be so because of the team dynamics that you talked about. It comes down to that as well, because you also need that team spirit. You also need the gelling. You want the companionship, camaraderie in the squad. So probably that's what killed him.
All right. So Michael Jordan and the upshot from The Last Dance continuing. We'll take snapshots from The Last Dance as they come up, because we also understand that Scottie Pippen is not a happy man.
Hi, my name is Luke Bahamute, Los Angeles Clippers small forward, and you're listening to ZiFM Sport.
Around the world in 60 seconds. International sports news.
Around the World in 60 is proudly brought to you by DSTV. We take off in England, where World Rugby will this week consider temporary law changes aimed at reducing the spread of coronavirus. A study by its medical group has proposed temporarily scrapping reset scrums and upright tackles. The recommendations, which will be put to World Rugby's executive committee, will also include washing hands, changing shirts and headgear at halftime, as well as outlawing spitting, banning huddles, and regularly sterilizing the rugby balls. The report found that eradicating reset scrums would lead to a 30% reduction in high transmission exposure time. We head over to Canada, where ice hockey legend Wayne Gretzky has hailed Bianca Andreescu as a hero for young kids after claiming her maiden Grand Slam title at the US Open. Andreescu stormed to her breakthrough success in Indian Wells before upsetting Serena Williams at Flushing Meadows last year. The 19-year-old has since been out of action with a knee problem severely limiting her court time before the coronavirus pandemic. Speaking to NBA superstar Steve Nash and co-host Vasek Pospilis in the latest episode of Tennis United, NHL icon Gretzky has been surprised by the way Andreescu has handled herself on the big stage. We touched down in the US, where Miami Dolphins owner Stephen Ross spoke confidently when asked to assess the likelihood of the 2020 NFL season being played as scheduled. I think there definitely will be a football season this year, Ross said in an appearance on CNBC. Ross is not quite uncertain about fans being permitted to attend games at the Dolphins Hard Rock Stadium, but management is working hard towards the goal of holding at least 15,000 fans in a checkerboard seating arrangement that meets social distancing standards. Tonight's movie of the day is The Mighty Duck. It's a feel-good family sports film that melts your heart and the ice. A selfish lawyer who is sentenced to community service coaches a ragtag ice hockey team made up of outcast kids. Don't miss it, 8:30 p.m. on Supersport 1.
Hi, I'm Clemens Matau, chicken in midfielder. You're listening to ZiFM Sports.
The big leagues, the big teams, the big players. The beautiful game on ZiFM Sport. Horsepower unmatched. Torque to beat the best. Speed unrivaled. Sleek and easy on the eye. Let's get behind the wheel of football engineered to perfection. The Bundesliga, made in Germany.
Well, the nation that brought us Vorsprung, the same nation that gave us the Berlin Wall that then came down, and the nation also that spoiled the little moustache for every man who wants one out there, Germany. That's where football is taking place, and last night was a big one. Bayern Munich coach Hansi Flick said they took a big step towards an 8th straight Bundesliga title as their 1-0 win at Borussia Dortmund opened a 7-point lead with 6 games left. Midfielder Joshua Kimmich settled an edgy affair with a deft chip over home goalkeeper Roman Bürki just before halftime at the Westfalen Stadium behind closed doors. Thomas Muller has revealed that Bayern Munich targeted a weakness in Borussia Dortmund goalkeeper Roman Bürki's game by attempting to chip him.
When Joshua did this chip, I think it was a long hang time of this ball and everybody, but I had a good feeling from the first moment because Roman Bürki is a great keeper, but one of his strengths is that he is maybe 1 or 2 steps outside of his goal because maybe he is not the longest arms, and so with this 1 or 2 steps in front he tried to have a better angle, and Joshua saw that brilliant and was a beautiful goal.
Alois Bunjira, not the result that you were looking for as a Dortmund fan, but certainly in terms of the game, all-around play, a bit of jitters, but Bayern Munich certainly huge step to the championship. This.
Yeah, with 6 matches to go, very 7 points ahead. I don't see Borussia Dortmund coming back. For this one. We can safely say that it's done and dust for Bayern Munich because they are the giants of German football. Let's be honest, we all know that, and we were looking forward to Borussia Dortmund to challenge, but unfortunately now it's all over. This is a German title to lose for themselves, and I don't know, man. 8 championships. I don't like it. I don't like it when there is no competition in any league. I don't like it, man. I don't like it. I was dominant. Yes.
And in truth, Mike, this is Bayern Munich almost cementing their dynasty almost. Certainly domestically, they've created that dynasty.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it played itself out in 2013, 2014, sort of like 2015 periods. Because what happened is that we go back to around 2000 to 2002. Borussia Dortmund is nearly bankrupt. They have to work their way from that position back to a winning team in 10 years. With the masterstroke of bringing in Jurgen Klopp, who then builds a team from scratch. No one knew of Robert Lewandowski until Jurgen Klopp brought him in from Poland. No one knew of Mats Hummels. No one knew of Marco Reus, Ilkay Gundogan. All those players who have gone on to become... Blasicowski, all those players that have gone on to become big stars in European football. So Borussia Dortmund, with a patient approach, built a team. And they didn't just build a team, they built a team that overtook Bayern Munich. And having done so, Bayern Munich looked across at this project and realized that they couldn't compete with it on the football field. And so what did they do? They went on to dismantle the Borussia Dortmund project by cherry-picking the best talent from Borussia Dortmund, taking advantage of Borussia Dortmund's financial position. Because remember, Borussia Dortmund was coming from a position where they were broke, so they couldn't compete in terms of wages. So they couldn't give you Robert Lewandowski the world-class wage that Bayern Munich could. That's why Robert Lewandowski has managed to stay at Bayern Munich for so long and not gone to Spain or to England, because Bayern Munich can afford to pay £200,000 pounds a week. And so they did that. They cherry-picked. Mats Hummels is back at Borussia Dortmund, but we forget that this is his first season back after spending about 5 seasons at Bayern Munich. He was picked off. Mario Götze was picked off. And so that's what they did. And that sort of like really knocked the stuffing out of Borussia Dortmund. So that's what has led to this dominance of Bayern Munich, where they've cherry-picked the best players from the Manuel Neuer was at Schalke. You know, Schalke was an upcoming team. Remember, with Joao Matip, Manuel Neuer, Leon Goretzka, Ivan Rakitic, who's now at Barcelona. And what did they do? They took Manuel Neuer, they've taken Goretzka and so forth. That's what they continuously do in Germany and weaken teams. It's like the Sundowns model in South Africa, where all the bright young stars in South Africa, sooner or later, the Mamelodi Sundowns are coming knocking on your door. And so, to be honest, there is no hope of any sort of competition that Alois would want to see until these teams achieve financial parity with Bayern Munich. Borussia Dortmund is now close. They've now got a solid financial model and a solid scouting model, which means that they're able to identify the best young talents, because their scouting model now is amongst the best in Europe. You know, the Sanchos, the Arlands, all these young kids that they've managed to bring in. And they're also able to spend a bit more now. And so I think in about a year or two, Borussia Dortmund may well be able to compete. But again, if Borussia Dortmund lose Sancho, if they lose Arland, if they lose Hakimi, it's back to square one.
And holding on to their best and their brightest talent, Chris, is really the issue, because if they're going to upstage the Bayern Munich dynasty, they've got to be able to hold on to their talent for a period of at least 3-4 seasons, so that they are able to build on that success. Every time you're building and then breaking down and bricks are being pulled out, like your Jadon Sancho, like your Erling Haaland, you're never going to be able to then quite kick on, are you?
No, definitely not. And they have to come up with a very good strategy to retain those players, because even now we're hearing talk of Sancho moving across to back to England actually, and Erling Haaland being linked to Spain, I think it is. So already these players they haven't even reached their peak, but because of that potential that they're exuding, other clubs across Europe are now looking at them and thinking, okay, we want this one, and those are their key players, especially a Haaland, who is scoring all of those goals for Borussia Dortmund. So they need to come up with a very good strategy in order to retain those young players.
Well, that one ended 1-0 in favor of Bayern Munich, and Bayern Munich has all but sealed the championship because that puts them 7 points ahead of Borussia Dortmund with 6 matches to be played. There was other action last night. Bayer Leverkusen going down at home to Wolfsburg 4-1. Eintracht Frankfurt and Freiburg played out a 6-goal thriller. 3-3 that one ended, and then Werder Bremen and Borussia Mönchengladbach playing out a 0-0 draw. So that, the Bundesliga, the only football being played in Europe at the moment, but certainly giving us exciting entertainment.
Your Bundesliga standings look something like this. Bayern Munich right at the top with 64 points. Borussia Dortmund 7 points adrift now. They have 57. RB Leipzig 54 points, and in 4th place Borussia Mönchengladbach 53 points, and they only have a superior goal difference. Bayer Leverkusen is in 5th, and sitting right at the bottom we have Paderborn with just 18 points, Werder Bremen with 22, and Fortuna Düsseldorf with 24. Some more action is on tonight in the Bundesliga. Red Bull Leipzig versus Hertha Berlin. Union Berlin will be taking on Mainz. Augsburg versus Paderborn. Fortuna Düsseldorf versus Schalke 04, and Hoffenheim versus Cologne.
All the rivalry.
Here is Harry Kane for Tottenham. Oh, what a goal! A
the stars.
Back heels Liverpool 2 in front. Talk about impudent. Talk about improvisation. Talk about Sadio Mane.
And all the game-changing moments.
And Raheem Sterling rattles at home. And once more, City are in front in a trice.
All the updates from the Premier League on ZiFM Sport.
Let's give you an update out of London, and news is that Arsenal and Tottenham will compete against each other for the free signing of Chelsea's Villian as they face up to a lean transfer window. The Premier League rivals are facing a scenario where they'll only sign players on free transfers, loans or in swap deals, according to the Telegraph. Both clubs are reportedly planning for a summer without spending any money as the financial impact of the coronavirus suspensions begins to bite. And there's been some big news to come out of England as they inch ever closer to a return to action. The clubs have unanimously agreed for a return to full contact training. We'll get, of course, the thoughts of the team on that development a bit later. But Alois, it looks like the anticipation around Willian had been that he would probably move out of England, probably move to La Liga or to Serie A. But now it looks like he may not even need to move house. He may well be joining another one of the London teams in the form of Arsenal or Tottenham. Good move for him?
Yeah, I think it's a good move. I'm surprised, that Chelsea are not holding on to him, because I believe they actually need him. He might not be young, but when you look at him, his agility and what he can give, he still has the energy. He still has the energy of a 26-year-old. He is one of those typical players that can still move at 36. So when I look at him, I still see somebody who is still explosive, can still give you 4 or 5 years of top flight football. I'm not so sure. So good move for him if he goes to Arsenal. I should think, I believe that Arsenal, they play the quick game with faster players. If Arsenal hold on to Aubameyang, I think they can actually strike a very good combination with Willian, and they can actually be very potent up front. So hopefully he does that. I'm a supporter of good football. I always have good football. I want teams to be strong. I want competitiveness. So I want Arsenal to be strong. When I look at Willian, if he goes to Arsenal, he can actually make much stronger and more dangerous going up front. And I think that that's a better move for him. For Chelsea, I will still ask questions. Why are they letting such a very good player go?
Yeah, it's a question that needs answering, isn't it, Barry? It looks like Frank Lampard has decided that he's going to go with youth. He's decided that he's going to go with homegrown talent. We have seen the likes of Mason Mount, the likes of Tammy Abraham. Those young players have been given plenty of playing time at the expense of more established, senior, more experienced players, because Willian, let's not forget, is a full Brazil international.
He's a full Brazil international, and I think to dramatize the point even further, when Neymar was injured in that Confederations Cup adventure, the player who was called in, who was on standby and replaced Neymar, was Willian. So he's a player, not only is he a full Brazil international, he's a player with a tremendous amount of ability, even as Alois pointed out. So this decision by Frank Lampard, obviously he's got his own way that he wants to go. Like you pointed out, those players, the youngsters that are being blooded in, and the likes of Gilmore, who are coming into that Chelsea lineup, those are going to be the future. I don't know whether you can actually build a winning team with strictly youth. Surely you need to blend them.
Chris, and just one thing that a lot of players talk about when they are making decisions around moves, especially if they are family men, is how it will affect their family, how they will integrate into new communities, into new societies. In this case, he doesn't need to do that because he's just changing his training club, in truth, where he goes to train. But everything else is remaining the same, and that's sort of the sort of stability that probably he would want.
Definitely, it's an almost easy decision for him to make, and I think a move across to a team like Arsenal, where he's guaranteed to get a lot more game time, to get a lot more exposure, as it were, I think it's definitely a good move for him. Some updates for you from the rest of Europe. Real Madrid midfielder Casemiro has reportedly signed a new contract at the club until 2023, with the deal being struck months ago. The Brazilian has been a first-team regular for a number of years now, and the season has made 35 appearances for Zinedine Zidane's side in all competitions. And now, according to a Spanish outlet, Marca, the club have tied the defensive midfielder down to another 3 years at the club, though they have opted against making contract renewals public knowledge. And finally, some news out of Serie A. Cristiano Ronaldo has returned to Juventus training but is working separately to the rest of his teammates after spending time in quarantine since returning to Italy. The forward went to his native Madeira in Portugal when the lockdown in Italy was announced in early March, but returned to Turin at the start of this month before undergoing a 2-week quarantine. The 35-year-old underwent testing last week and was given the green light to resume, but he will remain apart from the rest of the squad for the time being.
Remaining apart from the rest of the squad, Cristiano Ronaldo, we have to now be apart from you because we gotta go. That's our show. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We'll catch you tomorrow for our shortened edition. It is a Throwback Thursday. May God richly bless you. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Manandi, out.
And it's Messi! It is the cleanest of clean finishes from the best on the planet.
The biggest sports stories.
Liverpool, the champions of Europe, are top of the world.
The biggest interviews.
That such a great spectacle is ruined by such thuggish behavior.
And all the analysis right here.
He's the one player that has the arrogance to think that he can play in any stadium in the world and any pitch in the world in front of any player in the world and take them on.
Every weekday, it's my sport, it's your sport. It's ZiFM Sport on ZiFM Stereo. My station, your station.